Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Westminster has announced that it is prepared to give up to £20 million to 7 towns up and down the length of Scotland to help level them up. Invest in the towns, make the lives of the people who live in them slightly better. And this, of course, has gone against SNP policy or something, because the SNP, rather than being grateful for any assistance at all for these towns, is actually quite angry. They don't like it, and they're claiming it's just blatant electioneering. It may well be, but even so, it's still £20 million going in. You'd think that they would welcome it, but they don't. And Anam Kazir, she in particularly, is very aggrieved at the fact that these towns are getting this money from Westminster. You have to wonder why. Well, we'll look at why, we'll see which towns they are, and we'll see why the SNP are unhappy about it in general, why Anam Kazir is particularly annoyed by this. But then, anything that annoys her, it's got to be a good thing, right? Anyway, let's have a look, see what's going on in these 7 towns. Here goes. So, blatant cronyism, as Anam Kazir leads angry SNP criticism as Westminster bypass Holyrood with funding for Scottish towns. And in that headline, we have their real reason for their anger. It isn't whatever they say it is. They're saying it's blatant cronyism. They're going to say it's electioneering. They're going to give you a whole bunch and multitude of reasons why this was wrong and why Westminster shouldn't have given this money to these towns. It's because the money's gone directly to these towns. What it hasn't done has gone into the hands of the SNP. Because if they get it, they can spend it on other things like independence, and it won't reach the people it's intended for. And how do we know that? Because Westminster has previously given money to the SNP for towns, and it's not got to the towns, and the SNP have spent it on other things and can't tell anyone what they've spent it on. So Westminster are wising up and knowing that when they have money to give directly to the people who need the money, they're just starting to give it directly to the people who need the money and not let the SNP get their little grubby hands anywhere near it, because they know they're effectively going to steal it. Anyway, the Nationalists have hit out at the UK government for daring to hand £20 million directly to 7 Scottish towns to help regenerate town centres and tackle anti-social behaviour. The SNP they're very, very angry about this. Right? The cash boost was announced on the first day of the Conservative conference, with Elgin, Coatbridge, Greenock, Dumfries, Clydebank, Kilmarnock and Irvine being the overlooked places to receive the cash. Now, it's about £3 million each, so it won't be a great deal in the grand scheme of things, but it's cash that goes directly into the hands of the councils for those places, rather than going into the hands of the SNP, who will then not hand that over to these councils, because that's what they do. All of the money will go straight to the councils to be spent on each town and will be utilised to regenerate high streets and tackle anti-social behaviour. But the direct rewarding of the cash has deeply upset the Nationalists, with MP Anam Kazir leading the criticism, because she's not getting her little cut, perhaps. And now, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to draw attention to the fact that Anam Kazir may or may not be the person whose relative handed out cash in envelopes in order to secure an easy seat for Anam Kazir. I'm definitely not saying that. Definitely not the case. We cannot think that. You may think that, but I can't possibly comment. And that is a rumour, but it's not my rumour. I'm merely reporting a rumour that may or may not be the case. Am I covered? I think I'm covered. Anyway, she described levelling up as nothing but blatant cronyism, as she claimed that financial advantages are seemingly given to areas where the Tories seek to bolster their vote. And speaking to the pro-Indie newspaper The National, or Pravda, or Toilet Roll, depending on how you look at it, she added, "After over a decade of being overlooked by the Westminster Conservative establishment, this promise of additional funding comes too little, too late for many Scottish households." Well, it isn't for households. And if Scottish households are poor, it's after 16 years of SNP rule, not, a £3 million investment, which sounds a lot if it's in your own back pocket, but in terms of a council, it's very, very small amount of money. These are people who have borne the brunt of Tory cuts and austerity on their communities. Well, it's you who's putting the taxes up. You're the ones putting the income tax up, putting the community tax up, the council tax up, putting the minimum pricing on alcohol. You're the ones doing all this. You're the ones making life miserable for people. You can't blame the Tories for everything. She said, if the Tories were serious about these commitments, they would have consulted with the Scottish Government. No. They don't want anything to do with the Scottish Government, because then the Scottish Government are a corrupt bunch of crooks. Anyway, she said that we would have consulted with the Scottish Government in the normal manner via the Barnett formula. This would have ensured that the need of Scotland's communities aligned with Scotland's economic priorities. Well, we've seen your priorities, which are not the same as Scotland's priorities. The two are very much different. The difference between what Scotland needs and what the SNP needs are miles apart. Anyway, many critics pointed out that Holyrood was bypassed because they failed to previously pass on ring-fenced funding from the Treasury for the likes of keeping open swimming pools. And a row broke out only last week after 3 SNP politicians made misleading claims about where the £6 million of funding went, which is still unknown where this cash got to. They were given £6 million, told, keep your pools open. Gone. Nobody knows where it's gone. Just, pissed away. Probably on expenses. Anyway, Deputy Chair of the Glasgow Tories, Fatin Hamid, said, at least the money is going into the hands of the people in towns and for the development of the communities, unlike your SNP government, which is obsessed with divisions and ignoring people's real priorities, as has been seen by the evidence of what has happened before. Another SNP MP, Gavin Newlands, claimed that it was a pre-election bribery. He said this is an out-of-the-blue act of pre-election bribery which local authorities, devolved governments or MPs were neither consulted with nor informed about. You don't need to be consulted with. Why would anyone need to consult you about central Westminster money going, which is over and above what you were expecting, going to these towns directly? What's that got to do with you? You're not involved in this. Why should I consult you about how I spend my money elsewhere? Now, if it's about money that they're giving directly to the Scottish Government, fine, you have the consultation. It's a very weird way of looking at it, the way they're looking. Social media users highlighted that the Nationalists also partook in similar schemes ahead of the Holyrood election, promising free laptops, which didn't materialise, for every school child, free bikes for kids, which didn't materialise, and who are consulting on a minimum income guarantee, which also will not materialise. They're talking a good game, but they're not delivering. Talk the talk, can't walk the walk. That's the SNP, isn't it? Even the Scottish Government described the cash push for councils as extremely disappointing, despite the money being extra funding for Scotland. A spokesperson said, while the Scottish Government welcomes all extra funding for Scotland, it would be much better if it provided it to the Scottish Government so that we could spend it on shit that we like, rather than handing it over directly to the people who actually need the money. It's not what he said, but that's exactly what happens, and that is why the Westminster Government gave it directly to the councils, and a lot more of this should happen. The Westminster Government, when it hands things out, should hand it directly to the people who need it, rather than via the SNP, who then sequester that money, take their cut, slide a bit over to their mates over there, that kind of thing, because they are a corrupt bunch of crooks. And, that's certainly not an example of a corrupt MP, because obviously I couldn't possibly say, how she got her seat. So I'm not going to say that. And we'll not highlight that anymore. We'll just let that one pass. We'll just call her the lady who got her seat legally. That's how we'll define. That's perfectly acceptable description, isn't it? And there she's wearing her little swastika on a symbol, your little fascist symbol. It doesn't half look like one, doesn't it? You can imagine them, can't you? Marching into Poland. Anyway, I should stop there and come up. Yes, so how dare Westminster give money to people who need it. How dare the money go directly to these councils without the SNP taking their 30%, 50%, 100% of the money. They really don't like it, do they? They don't like being out of the equation. They don't like being out of the ability, or having the ability removed from them to steal that money. Good. And a lot more of it should happen. Anyway, to finish this, thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here in the channel, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and always make sure that the SNP get nowhere near your wallet. Bye.